Good morning, everybody. Thank you for sitting down with us today. We appreciate it. It's good to be with you. This is Tim Andersen, the Appraiser's Advocate, and today our guest is international, something that we don't get very often. We get to talk today with Jesus Orozco, one of the general directors of Tinsa, Mexico in Mexico City. Jesus, good morning and welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, how are you, Tim? Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, it's great to be with you. We have corresponded by email and by LinkedIn a few times, but we've never had the opportunity to sit and chat. So this is something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. It's amazing. Thanks for the invitation again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Now, you are one of the general directors of Tinsa, Mexico, and in Mexico and throughout Central and South America, Tinsa is one of the largest appraisal and valuation consulting firms around. Is that correct?
Yes, the biggest independent one. I'm the chief regional officer for Mexico.
Okay, so for all of Mexico, you're the chief regional officer. Okay,
yes,
now
right.
you and I had spoken. We've spoken off camera about a couple of things. Let's talk, if we may please, first about some of the differences between appraising internationally, with which you have experience, and relatively few of those of us in the United States have, and what we do what we do and how we do it in the United States. So, what is one of the major differences between appraising where you are and appraising where we are?
Well, I believe it's at the end it's almost the same, and it's almost the same all over the world. You know, the process we follow to perform appraisal reports, it's almost the same. There are a few differences in between countries because of regulation, and I believe it's where the difference are here in Mexico against what you do in the States. Uh, the first one, and I think the biggest one, is that in Mexico, if you want to become an appraiser, you have to have a professional background related to real estate, such as architect or civil engineer, or even an accountant, right? Uh, you have to study a master degree in appraisal, real estate appraisal, and then you gain this designation, but it's a lifetime designation. You don't have to renew it like every year or something like that. Then you accomplish, if you belong to some boards, to these boards are located in every state of the Mexican Republic. And then you have to accomplish some any amount of hours. It's different between these boards to gain one more designation or to belong to this board. That lets you perform some work for public institutions, you know, for tax purpose or things like that, right? But we don't have state license like you do. And we don't have like the USPAP or the MIA designation. We only have this. It's like a government license, if you want to call like this. It's emitted by the Secretaría de Educación Pública, for it in Spanish. That's the name of the institution. It's a government one. And then you have all the credentials to perform these appraisal reports. Then, if you want to work for banks, such as mortgage appraisers, you have to have a different designations that is given by another government instance that it's called Sociedad Hipotecaria Federal. It's not a non-public bank. And they give you this designation, so you are allowed to perform this kind of appraisals. Do companies like Tinsa, that it's an AMC like you have in the States, is appraisal management companies, if I'm correct with the name.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes,
well,
sir.
it's the same in Mexico. We have the same kind of companies. They are called unidades de evaluación, and in Spain they are called sociedades de tasación. But it's the way they work, it's the same. Then you can perform these appraisals to mortgage one, right, for the banks. And I want to point something that I believe it's very important. All commercial appraisals, they are non-regulated in Mexico, right? No, we don't have something, any kind of policy or warranty that supports this kind of appraisals.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you don't have USPAP. And I think that sound that you hear is thousands of United States appraisers going to Mexico, so they don't have to continue to put up with USPAP. Now, I wanted to go over two areas that you just mentioned, one, the training, and the two for doing commercial appraisals. Let's go back to the training, if we may, please. Okay. You mentioned that to become an appraiser, you had to have advanced training in architecture or engineering or accounting or something like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so in Mexico, to become an appraiser, unlike the United States, you basically then have to have a college degree, right?
That's right.
Okay, that's right. And then it has to be in something that is generally real estate related. In other words, if you had a degree in archaeology, yes, it probably wouldn't work.
We have a few lawyers there, but it's not like very common.
Well, okay. Well, we'll just forget the lawyers. Okay. But so you require a college degree. Now, you say you also had talked about advanced training. Does that mean something like the equivalent of a master's degree, or is that just? Yes. So in other words, it requires a great deal of formal education in order to become an appraiser in Mexico.
Yes, you are talking about 5 years on college, and then a master's degree in real estate appraiser. Average time, it will be like 1.5 years to 2 years, more or less. So you are talking about 7 years.
So it's a very formal,
yes.
Very.
That's if you want to work for commercial appraisals. If you want to work for mortgage, that it's a regulated field, then you have to wait 2 more years of experience to gain the appraisal designation. And if you want to be something that we call controlador, that it's a controller, the person or the one who works in the AMC, the AMCs to review the appraisals that the appraisers perform, then you have to wait 5 more years or gain 5 more years experience, right?
So you have. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No, sorry. So you may be talking about 10 years, more or less.
10 years of formal education and yes, very intense practical yes, training. Yes. Now, the other area, thank you. The other area I wanted to get back to was you indicated that to be a commercial appraiser was a somewhat different path, a somewhat different set of regulations. What's involved in detail? What's involved there?
Well, it's a non-regulated field. So just with having this certification or license or however you want to call it, because it has no name here, that it's our cédula. It's a cédula, it's something like a license, and it's given to any kind of professional who has performed, it can be like the college and then a master's degree in something. It can be like real estate or a doctor who performs any kind of a specific field, and then he has this cédula that lets you work in that field. Yeah, and then you are allowed to perform appraisal for commercial ones, right? So it's not like a specific or another designation.
But it does require the cédula, the credential, the yes, license, as yes, it were. Okay.
Yeah, because now it's something funny because before 1994, all kind of appraisal activity was regulated, but by the Comisión Nacional Bancaria. No, that's a commission from the National Bank, the Mexican National Bank. But if you remember, in 1994 we have the tequila crisis, and it has some impact in mortgage credits and, of course, in appraisal works. And at that moment, this entity decide to not regulate anymore this field. So from 1994 until 2002, we have no regulation in any kind of work related to appraisals, right? The banks during this period, they continue to perform appraisals because you need to give credits, okay, or to perform any kind of operations or transactions. So the banks had to perform or to work in their own regulations. So that's something that we are working right now. I mean, it's something that has never been loose or changed in commercial appraisal related to banks. So if you want to work in that field, you have this resignation again called cedula, and you have to work according the regulations of every single bank that you work for.
Now, each individual bank would have its own set of regulations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, given that, do appraisers in Mexico tend to work for just 2 or 3 banks, or do they just work for everybody and then have a copy of the bank's regulations on file so they can follow them?
No, I believe we have a mix. The older appraisers, they are used to work like with 2 or 3 institutions, and younger appraisers, they are more used to work like a variety of clients, banks, individuals, public institutions. They have like a biggest scope for clients. I don't know if it's related to technology or how the people work with technology and how they perform like more easy or faster the appraiser, so they have like more time to perform more kind of work. I believe so. I don't know any kind of specific reason, right?
Let's suppose that I wanted to retire to Mexico and buy a house. First of all, as a non-citizen of Mexico, would I be allowed to do that?
You are allowed to do that, but you don't have I don't know this name. It's kind of like a permission to use a property for 99 years, but you don't own the property. It's called a fideicomiso.
Okay. So basically, it's
Like a trust.
what
I believe that the translation of the word fideicomiso is trust. I'm
it
not
would
very
we'd
sure
probably look at it as have nothing more than a leasehold interest.
Yes, it's like a concession for
Uh-huh.
use,
Now,
but you pay the full value of the property.
you pay the full price. Okay. All right. Now so I come down to Mexico and I get the necessary permission and I buy the house. But I can't afford to pay cash for it, so I want to borrow. I want a mortgage through a Mexican or a European bank.
Mhm.
So what? I guess I have to go through more or less the same process, and then an appraiser is going to be chosen to form a value opinion of that property.
Mhm.
And from what you indicated earlier, that process would be more or less like what we do here. Now, given the fact that, for example, you mentioned the training in engineering and architecture of so many appraisers, would that appraisal give a great deal of weight and emphasis to the reconstruction cost of the house? Or is it basically just what other properties, similar properties, have sold for in the general area?
No, right now we are working, and I believe we have been working like that for over 15 to 18 years, working on market approach, like you in the States, well, like you do it in the States. And if it's a property that generates income, it has to be processed by an income approach, right? But I think you pointed something very interesting, and I think that's the reason there are so many architects and engineers and civil engineers in the field, that it's that before the time I have told you, this 18, 20 years, most of the appraisals were performed under just the cost approach, right? And
Hmm.
if you want to work with cost approach, you have to be very, or you have to know a lot of cost, construction cost, and land cost, and all that related on how a construction is performed, right? Or built. So I think that's the reason that so many people in the field, on the construction field, they're working as an appraisers. But since 2000, more or less, and with the entrance in Mexico of companies like Tinsa, that is an international one and has and works under very strict regulations by the Bank of Spain, and it specifies you about the market approach and the income approach. Things have changed in Mexico, right? And today, most, I may told you, like 99% of the appraisals we do in the country are performed on the under the market approach, as you do in the States.
More or less the same way we do it here.
Yes.
Okay. Now, where do when your office or your offices gets an assignment to appraise a property for mortgage purposes, where is it you go? What is it you do? Who do you contact to get comparable sales data? Is there a multiple listing service or a central repository of information, or is it you just go to your contacts and hope they tell you the truth?
Well, there you have a big difference in between Mexico and the States, because sales are not a public information. It's not public. Even we have a public register for these operations, but we don't have access to these real sales. So you have to use, I just forgot the word that you use, these listings, that
Hmm.
you normally search on internet, or you have information over some real estate brokers, right? But it's not, I don't want to say easy, because I think it's an unfair word, but it's not as fast to have information as you do in the States. I remember once I had to perform an appraisal in Florida, where you are, of a hotel, and it was, again, I don't want to say easy, but it was like very useful to find information on this case on the Miami-Dade County about the history of the transactions on this property over the years. And that's a thing that we don't have in Mexico. We don't have any kind of, I don't know if the word is traceability over the years. So you just have information like in this time, in this moment, of what you find on the internet, and with all the lack of trust that you have on the information that you found on the internet, right?
Hmm.
So you have to have a lot of information or databases to work for. One of the things that it's good that we have in Tinsa in Mexico is that we have a big database, so we can help our appraisers and the people who review these appraisals, these controllers, because you can see the evolution of value or the prices over the years, so you can have more or less of how to construct a value right now, so you don't overestimate the price, a value, right?
So while Mexico itself does not have a system of public records, TINSA maintains a very deep database that has a
Right,
lot of that information.
right,
And
right.
therefore, you've got a place to go for data. And then when one of your appraisers gets information on a new sale, it goes into the database. So
That's right.
you've got it to use. Okay.
That's
All
right.
right. Now, you had, in talking offline earlier, we were mentioning designations and state qualifications, et cetera. And you were mentioning that you're a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, an
That's right.
MRICS. Does
Yes.
that does that help you a lot in your appraising, or is it more of a system of developing contacts?
Uh, no, it helps me. because and it helps me in the company I'm working for, because as an European one, we have some clients that are from Spain, from France, Germany. So they want to have someone who performs the appraisals with some designation that gives you them warranties or policies that the work is performed on their best and highest practices, or IBS, or the Red Book as MRICS. So that's the reason we have this designation in Tinsa. It's not a designation that clients or the Mexican clients ask for, or even American clients. No, I'm talking about US citizens, because you are more related to MIA, right? So, and we don't have that many kind of clients. We are more related to European ones, but that's the reason of the company, where the company is based. And we are based on Madrid in Spain, right?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it give us both context, and it's something that clients ask for.
Okay. Let me pose a completely hypothetical situation.
Yes.
A French real estate developer goes to the Bank of Spain to mortgage a Caribbean resort in the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, is that loan going to be made in Spanish pesetas, French or francs, or I guess euros, or pesos, Mexican pesos, or dollars? How does that work?
Well, you have any kind of mix, and that's depend of your imagination and the bank's imagination. We have seen all kind of mix appraisals performed, by example, in Cuba. Like, well, I think now they have an open market, but they don't used to have an open market. So we have to perform appraisal with zero value, because they don't have any kind of transactions. You can give them an approach, and it's an example exactly as you did. A French company built some not resorts but houses for all employers in Cuba, in Havana, and the loan was given by a Spanish company, and then the Cuban government decided to not to be anymore with that business, so they take away the building, and they say, okay, I have to pay you, give me a price so I can pay you this thing that you build. And we perform this appraisal, but there used to be no commercial values in La Habana. So we have an example of values of similar properties in Miami, in Cancun, in Dominican Republic, to give a similarity of this property where on the Caribbean, but in other country where you have an open market, well, the value will be like this. So now you talk with the Cuban government, right? So you can have any kind of mix as your imagination can let you.
I was going to say, in Cuba, you're dealing with a communist country that does not have the concept of land ownership or private ownership of property.
Well, right now they have an open market for selling houses.
For houses, okay.
Yes, for houses. I don't know, the last resource that we perform appraisals in Cuba, the government kept an 51% of the business, so they have control. And the operator of the hotel has the 49%. I don't know if this have changed in the years, but about 5 to 4 years ago, it works like that.
So the lender, the mortgagee says, okay, we'll do business in Cuba. We're going to have a 51% partner, but as long as they pay the loan back, we don't care.
Yes.
And
to work like that.
It was the loan in let's see, I don't know what kind of money system they have in Cuba, but was the loan in dollars or euros?
No, I believe they perform it in euros.
Euros, okay, all right.
Because, well, if you are talking about an Spaniard bank, right?
Mm-hmm. So that would be in euros. So even in Cuba, they were denominating the value of the property in euros.
Yes, I believe so.
Wow,
At
that
least in this process that I have worked for.
wow, that's fascinating. Now, let's talk a little bit about the fact that Tinsa, you're headquartered in Spain.
Mhm.
You're in Mexico. Tinsa recently purchased the largest appraisal firm in Germany. Is
The
that
second one.
correct?
The second one.
The second, okay, the second
Yeah.
largest appraisal firm in Germany. Now, so let's talk about, let's look at this from a bit of a European standpoint. I've never appraised outside the United States, so I don't know anything about this. In Europe, is it much like it is in Mexico? In other words, comparable sales? Or is it more oriented toward the cost approach, or in Europe, especially in Germany, where you have the company? How does that work?
I believe it's market value as you do in the States. And if you remember when we start this conversation, I told you that it's more or less the same all over the world. I had the opportunity to see or to work with appraisers in some countries, even in Morocco. We have we have teams in Morocco.
Hmm.
So it's very funny how they not funny. I'm not making laugh of it.
No, you're
It's
not saying funny, ha ha. You're saying funny,
yeah,
unique. Yeah.
funny.
Hmm.
Yes, it's a very unique way they work because these have this Sharia law, and that says, and someone who is very related to Muslims will correct me, uh, but in a big idea, they are not allowed to give credit to the people. It's not permitted by the religion, right? So this, but even that they do have mortgage loans, right?
They have a concept, and I forget the
Yes.
Arabic term, but it's basically a concept of partnership.
Yes, that's right. So you can have a house and you lease this house for 20 years as if you have leased on a car, but this is on a house and you pay monthly for this leasing. And at the end, they give you the house for a very little price, right?
So it's a leasehold interest, and then in the
Yeah.
end, you buy out what amounts to the lease fee.
Yes. So
Fascinating,
yeah, well,
fascinating.
I'm telling you this because I think it's a very unique thing. I always like to talk about this. And you have to perform an appraisal.
Hmm.
So that's the reason we have teams in Morocco, right?
Hmm.
So going back to your question about Germany, yes, it's the same. Even so, we have a lot of appraisal properties and processes that are performed due AVMs, you know, automatic valuation models.
Right.
I believe it's because of most of the houses in Germany are like very alike.
Hmm.
We don't have this kind of these
Uh,
differentials as we.
so
I mean,
they're very because they're all the same and they're all built at the same time by the same people and they're the same size, etc. It's
yes,
easy to value them using an AVM's algorithm.
yes,
Whereas here, where I am, because so many houses are so different, and that becomes much more of a challenge.
it's the same as Mexico. It's very challenging to perform an appraisal by an AVM system in Mexico, as it may be in the States, but not in Germany. Another thing that it helps them is that Germany, even if it has a big population, almost like Mexico, they're about 100 million. It's geographic talking, it's very small compared to Mexico or compared to the States. So
Mhm.
you have a very high density in the country. So it's like all very similar. All the infrastructure it has, the cities are very alike. We don't have this very difference like you may have. Let's say an example in Louisiana or in New York, right? That you may have this huge difference in infrastructure. And it happens the same in Mexico. Mexico City has better infrastructure than the infrastructure you may have in Rosarito, by an example. Yeah? And that doesn't happen in Germany. You may have the same infrastructure that you have in Nuremberg as in Stuttgart or in Bonn or wherever you are in Germany. It's almost the same, right? So these models they work like very fast, and people they like to work banks. They like to work with these same VMs. The first purchase we have. performed in Germany was a company that performed appraisals over AVMs process.
Now, okay, the use of AVMs. Now,
Yes.
in Europe, or excuse me, let me rephrase. I'm sorry. In Germany, given the use of the of AVMs as part of appraisals, are German appraisers as deeply trained and deeply qualified as they must be in Mexico, or is that a separate issue altogether?
I may not have the answer to that, team. I'm not very related on the process they have to accomplish to become an appraiser. I know there are appraisals. This second company that we have purchased, most of the people who work in there, they have the MRICS designations.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe they have to perform some kind of education to become an appraiser. But I am not very sure about what's the process they have to follow, or which is the process they have to follow.
Okay. Now, speaking of backgrounds, you told me your background was civil engineering, right?
Architect.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Architect. Okay. So you have a background in architecture, so you understand design and room layout and flow and proportion and use and changing tastes, etc. Have you found that to be a plus, a positive for you in your appraisal career?
Yes, in some points. If you are talking about like the average appraiser, like houses, I don't think they'll give me many advances over someone who has not an architectural background, right? But if you are performing a price of a skyscraper or a hotel, a big one, this big resort, or a warehouse, no, a big warehouse for I say let's say the Amazon or things like that, these huge buildings and things like that. But I think in that cases it will give you some kind of advance in someone who has not been uh, educated in these things, right? In construction process or technical capacities of the land, no, where you can build or not. We live in a city, like I'm talking right now about specific Mexico City, who has a very unstable land or soil. I don't know how, but
Yeah, no, because Mexico City was built on what originally was a lake.
what used to be a
Yeah,
lake, right?
yeah,
Yes.
it's very unstable. Yeah.
And Mexico, most of the country is located under an earthquake zone, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have so many volcanoes and things like that. So I think it's a good thing to have some knowledge on things related to earthquakes and resistance on the constructions, on how are they built. I think that things give you some advantage, even is not the definitory, right? To give an appraisal value.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of the unstable land, the earthquakes and the volcanoes, is that something you have to take into account specifically, or because everybody undergoes that same threat, is that just already built into the purchase price?
It depends where you are. If you are doing an appraisal in Mexico City, you don't have to do anything different because all the city is based on this soil. So you don't
They all
have to
have that
any
problem.
you don't have that problem. But if you are performing an appraisal in say Cancun, Riviera Maya, then you have to take care of not have a property over what we call caverns, and I believe it's the same word in the States.
Yeah, over there's a lot. There are a lot of holes underground. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
all the peninsula de Yucatan, where it's Cancun, Tulum, all these areas related to resorts and things like that. There are a lot of caverns and these kind of big holes, so you have to be careful of consult this. They call Atlas de Riesgos, Risk
Mhm.
Atlas. I don't know if you have that in the States. We do have here in Mexico, and it gives you information of where these areas are located, geographically talking. So you take care of doing this appraisal. Some banks, they don't give you loans if your property is based on these lands.
Really?
because it represents some risk. Yeah.
It represents a risk too great for the
Yes.
bank.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so as we wrap up, let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, you want to develop some property in Tulum, okay, and
Hmm.
you've got the problem with the cavernas, the holes
Hmm.
in the ground. Um, so either you come up with a whole lot of cash, or you find somebody who's willing to take that risk. Is that correct?
Yes. If you want to ask for a loan.
So the
Yeah.
loan is going to be expensive, and it's going to be relatively small and probably relatively short term.
Yes.
The bank wants to minimize its risk in making the loan.
Or you can consult how the builder construct the property, because there are some systems for the foundations where you can work and pass through the cavern. So you have firms sold in between the property and the
Hmm.
cavern, right?
Hmm.
So they call like pilots.
Hmm.
Or you
Yeah,
can
pilings.
put,
Yeah. Hmm.
yes, and or it depends the size of the hole. You can put some
Concrete.
concrete, yes, well,
Yeah.
not concrete, cement, and another thing
Uh-huh.
to fill the hole. It depends on the size.
They're basically the cenotes, the
Yes.
where the
Well,
caliche, the limestone, has washed out.
if you have a cenote, you can do anything
Oh, if
because
you okay,
they
a
are
cenote
they are
is a
protected areas.
underground limestone cavern, the roof of which is collapsed and filled with
Yes,
water.
and it's protected by the government, so you cannot build in there.
Okay, so
But
that's
if you
protected land.
Yes, but if
Oh,
you
okay.
have smaller holes, you can decide on work on pilots,
Uh-huh.
or you can talk about filling them up and then construct over. So you have to check, however the builder construct the property, and then you talk the bank. Okay, this is well constructed, may not happen in something bad in the house for the near future.
So if you do want to build over that limestone that has eroded to some extent, then obviously the appraiser has to take into account those extra costs and
Yes.
account for them in the feasibility of the construction of the property.
In the cost approach you do, but sometimes the market value they doesn't recognize that investments, right?
Yeah, because the cash it'll throw off is the cash it'll throw
Yes,
off, no matter how
that's
you
it.
build it. Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Jesus, I want to thank you. I almost said Jesus quisiera agradecerle, but
Oh,
no,
thanks,
I
thanks for saying
no,
in
I should.
Spanish.
I need to say it in English. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate it very much. It's very kind of you to take time away from work and family to chat with us. This has been most eye-opening. If anybody needed to get a hold of you for whatever reason, how could they do that?
Uh, they can contact us through our website, that it's tinsamexico.mx. It's very simple. And there you may find our phones, emails, and all kind of information. And we are also in social media, in all social media under Tinsa Mexico name.
Yeah,
It's very easy to
I know
find us.
I know you're on LinkedIn because that's how we got in contact. Yeah,
We are in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere.
everywhere.
That's well, right? Today's you have to be there,
Oh,
or
you
you are
have to.
not anywhere.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. Well, Jesus, again, let me thank you. My best to your family. As
Thanks.
we tape this, it's just before Christmas, so please let me wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I look forward to the next time we get to chat.
The same to you and your family and the people who will watch this video. I hope they will enjoy it, and I hope they will understand my English.
Oh, that your
Okay.
English is fine. Thank you very much. Jose, I appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Bye bye.
Thanks, team. Bye.